Welcome to Unrestrained, the podcast series from CPI. Here you can enjoy conversations where professionals on all sides of crisis and behavior management relax and open up about themselves, their workplace, and their clients. You'll get the latest tips and trends from the best in the business, so tune in often to integrate their experiences with your own. Hello and welcome to Unrestrained, the CPI podcast series. This is your host, Terry Vitone, and today my guest is Jesse Hill. He is the Special Needs Driver Supervisor for Academy School District 20 in Colorado Springs, Colorado, as well as a CPI certified instructor with enhanced certification. Hello and welcome, Jesse.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk with Jesse about his school district, his role as the Special Needs Driver Supervisor, and the role that CPI's nonviolent crisis intervention training and techniques play in helping to keep things running peacefully on the buses and in the facility where the buses are maintained and housed. Here's a bit of background on Jesse. He moved to Colorado Springs in 2002 from his home state of Oklahoma to attend school. Also in that year, Jesse started work with the district as a driver. In the years that followed, Jesse worked as a relief driver, trainer, and router. He completed his BA in elementary education in 2008 and became the Special Needs Driver Supervisor in 2012. He earned his initial CPI instructor certification in 2013 and an enhanced certification in July of 2015 at CPI's instructor conference in New Orleans. Outside of work, Jesse serves in a local church as minister, elder, and teacher. He especially enjoys outdoor activities like camping, hunting, and fishing, as well as spending time with family. So then, Jesse, let's begin.
All right.
First, I'll ask you to tell folks about the Academy School District 20, some overall remarks about the size of the district, number of routes driven in a day, and any other information you think will make ASD 20 more clear in the minds of our listeners.
Okay. Well, District 20 has a combined of 36 schools that we transport to, 21 elementary schools, 8 mid-high schools, and then 7 high schools. And then we also have a couple of specialty schools that we transport outside of our district. In that, we have 76 at Academy School District 20. We have 76 general education buses that run routes, 47 special needs routes, and we have 44 paraprofessionals on there. We transport approximately 10,000 students a day in a year. The total that is actually eligible riders is that 10,900. We have a total of 26,000 students in our district.
So in any given day, the average number of bodies you're going to be transporting is 10,000.
Yes.
Wow, that's large. Now you mentioned the administrative riders on the buses. I'm not sure everyone understands what those are. You mentioned them in passing.
The paraprofessional on the bus.
Right.
Yeah, they serve as a bus monitor. They kind of take care of the students on the special needs end of the route. We have guidelines that we put on those, whether they have seizures, behavior issues. It kind of dictates how we assign those.
I see. So I'm sorry to cut you off about going on about the district in general. So you transport 10,000 a day. There's how many? 20-some?
Around 26,000 students in our district, and on any given day, we'll drive 9,400 miles between all of our buses.
Right.
So
that's a lot of logistics to keep in place.
Yes, it is.
So in your role as a driver supervisor, can you start with what a typical day, how it might begin?
Sure. My role, I am the driver supervisor for the special needs drivers.
How about some more information about the size of the special needs crowd there?
Yeah, we have 386 special needs students that we transport every day on 47 different buses. Again, with the 44 paraprofessionals or bus monitors that's right on there.
Okay, so that's the day begins. So you've got these 47 different drivers driving around all those students, and 44 paraprofessionals. So how does the day start for you? Just with a kind of a check-in on who's made it, who hasn't, or?
Yeah, my typical day will start when I'll stand out in the hallway and greet everybody as they come through. We just kind of watch the time clock, making sure that everybody's here and accounted for, that we don't have somebody that doesn't show up. and punch the time card so that, of course, we don't have kids standing on the corner waiting for a bus that's not going to show up.
Sure.
And so, I greet them, and and then after greeting them, I kind of move into that supervisory role of checking timesheets from the day before, and answering any questions from parents that might call in, bus drivers that would come in, and
so what time in the morning is this that you're checking them coming in?
Well, I get here at 6:30 in the morning.
I see.
Our first route runs about 5:45 a.m. They start their day. I get in at 6:30.
I see. All right, and so then after the drivers are out there and you know that the routes are all in place, you go and begin with paperwork and.
Yep. Yep. Start with the paperwork, looking at the timesheets from the day before, looking at seeing if I need to do any tweaking to routes. If I have any complaints, I deal with those as they come in. Just making sure that we're taking care of our students.
And what are some of the most common or pressing issues that the drivers might experience in their jobs or call you about?
A lot of the drivers that will come in and talk to me. We have a lot of behavioral students within our district, and a lot of those drivers will come in and talk to me about how can I manage this unique behavior of maybe a student with autism or a student that is just out of control on a daily basis, mad at the world, if you will. And so we kind of work through those processes and try to help them to understand a little bit more about what's really going on in the minds of these kids sometimes.
Can you give me a recent example of what kind of issue that might be?
Sure. Just recently, I've got a young man that got on a school bus, refused to be seated. The driver and the paraprofessional came to my office. They shared with me, asked me for some help. We kind of started troubleshooting about what we could do for that. I actually went to the school that day to check on them, to see exactly what was going on, see firsthand. Come to find out, his medications is wearing off. He did not want to be seated. He was climbing up and over the seats. Just a dangerous situation, grabbing a hold of kids, just out of control. And so, we look at the situation, and we look at each situation uniquely. Our first and foremost thing here in Academy District 20 is that we want to teach these kids how to sit properly on a bus and how to ride that bus correctly. We did end up putting this young man into a safety vest in order to keep him seated, because as soon as the bus would start to take off, up he would come.
I see. So what was the follow-up? I mean, if the follow-up must have been with the parents to determine that the medication wasn't adequate, or...
Yeah, and they're working with the school on that right now, and talking with the school. Just talking with them, they're in that process of how to regulate his medicines to where it's a full day and not just part of the day.
So would you guys consider a safety vest a kind of restraint then?
It is somewhat of a restraint. It keeps them seated in their seat. They still have some maneuverability, but the big thing is they just can't stand up and wander. They can still lean forward and look out the window.
Right. And so do you find that tends to be a corrective for that sort of behavior then that the child can live with for the duration that they're on the bus, at least?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we really try to work with is once the student kind of gets into a routine, sometimes we can even remove that safety vest as I want to say more as a reward that they're being good. They're sitting on the bus. They're learning those rules, and they will actually. Some of those kids will never return to a safety vest. It just takes that time to get them to understand
how to behave to avoid the restraint.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So now, how do you talk about how the CPI training first came into the district?
Okay. Well, we've had CPI here in District 20 for a number of years. Unfortunately, the first 10 years that I worked here, I was never trained in CPI.
Is that right?
And they kind of, I guess, if you will, pick and chose the individuals that they wanted to go through. We got a new director, Miss Cindy Harden, and she felt that it was so important to have that CPI, that understanding to help people to identify the anxiety level of students, not only students, but of course parents and peers, to understand that anxiety level is, and how to stop it before it goes into a physical intervention.
So then you were there from 2002 to 2012 before you had the CPI training, until Cindy Harden said this is imperative that everyone receive this training.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you find it made a difference right away as you came back in? I mean, did you find yourself, the concepts resonating with you?
Absolutely. When I became the supervisor, she said, "Jesse, I want you trained in CPI. I want you to become an instructor to help us to instruct everyone in our district or everyone in our bus transportation facility." And so I said, sure enough, so she sent me to Denver, and I had Mr. Marvin Sharp, one of your instructors, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that class.
Excellent. Excellent. I know he'll be glad to hear that. He's a professional manager now, Marvin is. So, yeah, I understand in our pre-interview you mentioned that not only did you train, for instance, the paraprofessionals and the drivers, but you guys trained all the way down to the mechanics that work on the fleet.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty, that's comprehensive indeed. And now you train, and how often have you trained, and do you train these days now that you are certified? I know you went to New Orleans this summer and got the enhanced certification.
And since I've gotten the enhanced certification, I've taught 4 full classes.
Wow.
Now we have 4 trainers here right now, and every person that comes in through our door as an employee will be trained. Normally within the first 6 months of their employment.
I see.
If we can get them trained quickly, it kind of helps alleviate some of that anxiety level that they might have when they get onto a bus and a student is starting to act out and they just don't know what to do. It kind of gives them that. So we do train just on a constant rotation right now. We have about 230 employees in the transportation department itself.
Right.
And from our bookkeeper all the way down to the mechanics, to all supervisors, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, everybody has been certified.
Excellent.
In CPI.
Hopefully that means a very safe and respectful environment where you work.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Pretty much.
That's good. Now, you said you've done 4 classes since then. How many students were in a class?
Usually we try to keep it to a limit of around 12 students.
That's a nice number.
Yeah, it kind of gives us that availability to get to know them a little bit.
Sure, that one-on-one is important. 12 is a good number. And what do you enjoy the training? You enjoy doing the training? I mean,
I love doing the training. Anytime I can do any kind of teaching and help people to be successful in their career, that's my goal, and that's where I look at and say, hey, I've either succeeded there or I need to work in this area.
I think it's great that you have the training on a revolving or sort of a refresher basis so that the messages keep getting repeated to people that have to go out and face potentially challenging behavior every day.
Absolutely. We do that. We do refreshers annually. Everybody will go through their recertification this year.
Excellent. Excellent. So that must be quite an administrative task for you, too, is keeping track of who needs to be trained and when and all those sorts of things.
It is.
All right. And can you give a couple examples, Jesse, of the impact of CPI training and de-escalation techniques that actually happen on the buses?
Yeah,
the impact. Or parents, for that matter.
Yeah. The one time that I remember, and I had to actually do a CPI restraint on a student that was coming after me. He came after me time and time again, and after a little while, I just kind of said, okay, enough's enough. I put him in a hold and leaned him back and just kind of talked him down. At that point in time, he was very agitated. I could tell that he was agitated when he came on the bus. His anxiety level was already ramped up. and he came after me to claw, to hit, to pinch, to bite.
Right.
And after a few times of him trying to get after me, I just kind of got him in that restraint hold and held him back and just began to talk with him. And I seen the de-escalation start to happen. He began to calm down a little bit, and I finally asked him if he was ready to go to his seat and sit down, and we would get him home safely. His response was, "Yeah, sure." And of course, as soon as I sit him down and got my hands off of him, he come right back at me again. And so I was again put him in the restraint hold and held him for a few moments, and we got some other people over to talk with him. Some from the school, they came in and talked with him, and a few moments later, he finally just de-escalated enough to where we got him sit down and we got him buckled into the seat, and he was perfectly fine the rest of the ride home. But it was that aspect of just talking with him and letting him know that letting him talk to us as well.
Right. So did he act out again?
He has on occasion, and I don't know of any other time that anybody has had to put him in a restraint. Now I know the school itself does, because they'll put him in a restraint.
I see.
When they're bringing him out to the bus, and I've actually had a talk with the school and said, if he's in that type of shape at that point, maybe he shouldn't be on a bus. This bus drives about 30 minutes from home, and down the interstate at 65 miles an hour. So,
right.
We don't need a student who is going to attack the driver.
Do you make alternative travel plans for students that are especially problematic?
We do to an extent. We pay for fuel cards if needed to be, for a parent to self-transport if they need that. We'll do that.
Hopefully the CPI training and the ability to de-escalate will cut that need for people to transport outside of the district to a minimum. I mean, that seems to be the most cost-effective way to do it.
And it is, and that's one thing that Ms. Harden really looks at, is she looks at that aspect of, if we can teach our drivers and our paraprofessionals, our mechanics, anybody that deals with people, if we could teach them to recognize the anxiety level beginning to rise and how to verbally de-escalate the situation, we're ahead of the game.
So if they can internalize the crisis management model and be able to recognize the stages, that's kind of the win.
Yeah,
right,
definitely.
So now, that's an example of de-escalation and technique with a student. And now you mentioned in our pre-interview also that you've sometimes had to de-escalate parents, and that sometimes that happens. It can happen occasionally. Not just as a wow, you'll never believe what happened to me kind of a thing. So what sort of issues do parents present when they show up?
Well, a lot of times, a parent that will approach either come to the transportation department or they may call on the phone. We receive just hundreds of phone calls of parents who's a little bit irate, and they can be out of control, from using foul language to yelling and screaming and calling us all kinds of names. When that happens, of course, our technique is okay. Let's use the CPI model here. Let's try to get them to calm down first and foremost. And probably 95% of the time, just by our mannerisms here on the other side, from what we've learned in CPI, just being calm, being reasonable with the individual, it will de-escalate them, and then we can have a civilized conversation. Unfortunately, there's those times that you have to say, when you calm down, I'll be more than happy to talk with you. But until then, I think our conversation is over. Now, we do have, on occasion, we will have a parent come in to talk with us face-to-face. And whether it's, a bus driver has done something, cut somebody off, those type things is normally what we deal with.
I see. But you find that just remembering that integrated experience and remaining calm yourself in being directive and supportive is going to be the best way to stop a cursing parent into a more productive sort of a conversation.
Absolutely. We do that all the time, that integrated experience, and just really understanding that. And, that's something that I bring up to my drivers on a continual basis. Guys, how you respond makes a difference how they respond, and how they respond makes a difference how you respond. It goes hand in hand, and if they can grab a hold of that, their response is a little bit less judgmental, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Easier to stay calm when you have a game plan.
Right.
Right. So how do you regard the effectiveness of CPI training and techniques in de-escalating the challenging behavior? Do you sense a qualitative difference in the outcomes since you trained, say, back in 2012? Are you noticing less incidents?
We do. We don't see a high level of incidences that happen on our buses. With the world that we live in right now, one of our biggest fears is a bus driver who says, "I can't touch a student." They're just scared to death because they're afraid of lawsuits and things like that. And we try to explain to them, if they're a danger to you or to themselves, that we have to do something, and we want to err on the side of caution and go ahead and do that. The nice part of that is on our vehicles, we have video cameras on every vehicle in our lot, and I have to remind them on quite a few occasions that guys, there's a video camera there, and if you're being safe and you're doing what you're supposed to be, what you've been trained, and the manner that you've been trained, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. I can still understand why in this lawsuit sort of we read about a lot of them in the news, so we're aware of them. Why a driver would be reluctant to put their hands on, but it sounds like with the training and with the with the video camera, there's complete disclosure of what they've done, that they could lean back on these training and techniques and not be so afraid to put their hands on a student. What age range?
We have a lot of young riders. But we do have that mixture of high school and middle school as well. Yeah. Most generally, our behavioral comes back into that elementary, that kindergarten through fifth grade level. Not so much in the high schools or the middle schools, just on occasion in the middle schools.
I see. So a bus then, a special ed bus, might have a mixture of students from first grade all the way through to a senior in high school?
Yeah. At one time, no, because we transport our high schools and our middle schools. Everybody's separated.
I see. So do you sense then? Do you sense a difference then in the outcomes? You say there's few of them, but I guess I've asked you that's kind of difficult to answer that. Besides saying that there's not a lot of them, but you sense more confidence maybe in your drivers and paraprofessionals.
I do. I do. When they go through the training, a lot of times they're reluctant at first to go through the training. And, especially the drivers and the paraprofessionals that have been here for a number of years.
Oh, I bet.
And they're kind of like, why do we have to do this more training? When they finish the class, usually we get the response of, wow, I never realized this, that I could do this, that I could help this student to succeed a little bit better, especially on special needs buses.
Wow.
And so they grab that training and apply it into their everyday life.
And with an understanding that it will actually improve the success of the students that they're driving. That's a beautiful realization.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Now, you mentioned in your experience working as a driver supervisor, you know of only a single instance where restraint was required during an incident. Is that the one you mentioned earlier?
That was, yeah. And that was actually, I just happened to be the driver that day. We were short drivers, and I was driving, and I was put on that route. So, yeah.
So you needed to use a control position a couple times, but ultimately it did help with driving from then on.
It did, and I drove that young man back home, and we talked the rest of the way home. I just kind of redirected him down a different avenue, and he was perfectly fine all the way home.
That's great. That's great. Well, we thank you for using CPI techniques and for being such an effective trainer. Let me ask you close today, just what inspires or satisfies you most about the job you do?
Just knowing that we're transporting these kids back and forth from home to school, school to home, that we're transporting them successfully, and that we're taking care of the kids, because that's our first priority. We have a saying here in District 20 in our transportation. Our kind of motto is every student every day. That it's about every student every day.
Nice.
No matter if they have a disability or if they're just a general ed student, we still want to look at them as they're part of this crowd that we want to get to and from school safely.
And that's a team value that it seems like a lot of people have adhered to.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, are there any final thoughts you'd like to add, Jesse?
The best thing I can say is how CPI has just encouraged me and helped me to be able to share with my drivers and paraprofessionals the importance of that management of these students. Excellent. For their success. And so, I just say thank you to CPI for all that they do.
Well said. Well, this is Terry Vitone at Unrestrained. My guest today has been Jesse Hill. He is the driver supervisor, special needs driver supervisor for Academy School District 20 in Colorado Springs. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you for joining us today on Unrestrained. Tune in again soon for another interview with an expert in behavior management. Until